Hey, long time no see. One day, my ex-husband, who I had parted ways with 12 years ago, came to visit me. He brought along a bouquet of Phalaenopsis orchids. My name is Nancy Overton. I'm turning 53 this year. I met my ex-husband when I was 25. It was a chance encounter at a bar I went to with some friends, where Mike Richardson approached me. As an aside, it seems he fell for me at first sight. At the time, he was 35, already an entrepreneur, running an automobile dealership, and also owning 3 restaurants, a real go-getter. Among those who knew him, Mike was notorious for his womanizing ways, and not just his friends, but even the regulars at his favorite spots would tell me, "Nancy, you're something else for getting him to quit his womanizing." True or not, it seems that after we started dating, his outings with other women completely stopped. He himself would proudly say, "Before I met you, I was out with a different woman every week. But Nancy, you're fate for me. I knew the moment I met you that you were gonna be my last woman." Looking back, maybe I should have been more skeptical then. But still being young, I took it as a compliment and was thrilled. "I'm so happy. I'll do my best to be your last woman." Yeah, that's what I like to hear. As a businessman with a reputation, I appreciate a woman who's willing to go the extra mile for me. In hindsight, it's clear how nonsensical our conversation was. But for someone like me, who enjoyed talking about politics and international affairs, being with Mike, who was 8 years older and well-informed, was fun, and it made me feel a bit more grown-up than hanging out with guys my own age. Above all, I had fallen head over heels in love. During our relationship, we could only go on dates 2 or 3 times a month due to his busy schedule. Yet, our relationship was going well, and a year in, I found out I was pregnant. Mike was genuinely happy about the pregnancy. "Really? That's great. I'm gonna be a dad? Wow, I can't believe it." "Are you happy?" "Of course. Didn't I tell you, Nancy's my last woman? Aren't you happy?" I was just a bit scared of how you would react since we've only been together for a year. Why worry about something so silly? Forget about it. "Yeah, I'm really happy too." Why was I anxious back then? It was because Mike had once said something like this. I had an ex-girlfriend who lied about being pregnant to get me to marry her. She was claiming she'd raise the child alone, but it was a pregnancy trap. Later, she started causing trouble over child support. It was so stressful. I kept quiet about this matter. Many of my friends didn't want to miss their chance to get married, and a few were even considering getting married because they got pregnant. I'm not one to judge which is worse, but I couldn't help feeling anxious that I might end up like them. Despite my worries, Mike was truly thrilled about my pregnancy. The very next day, he went with me to my parents' house to share the news and say hello. After that, I quit my job and spent my pregnancy helping Mike with his easier tasks. A few months later, I gave birth to our eagerly awaited first child. It was a girl and we named her Scarlett. 2 years after that, we welcomed our second daughter, Amy. What adorable little girls. "My little treasures," said Mike, as he doted on our daughters, actively participating in childcare tasks like changing diapers and giving baths. To anyone looking in, we must have seemed like the perfect happy family. However, I was struggling with Mike's emotional abuse. "Mike, thanks for all the help." "Huh? Who are you?" "What?" Mike's attitude changed right after our first child was born. I was struggling with the new challenges of childcare, on top of the household chores and helping with Mike's work. The lack of sleep made every day exhausting. I had neither the energy nor the desire for intimacy at night. "Sorry, I'm just too exhausted today." There were many nights when I had to say that. Each time, Mike would click his tongue in irritation and slam the door to show his anger. Realizing that this couldn't continue, I tried to have a talk with Mike. "Mike, I'm sorry. I'm still not used to taking care of a child. There's also the housework, and the deadline for that project is coming up fast. I'm exhausted every day. Once this project is done, how about we leave the kids with my mom and go on a date, just the 2 of us, like we used to. What? You're exhausted from doing half-assed cooking and cleaning? I only have 24 hours in a day, just like everyone else. With the little sleep I'm getting, of course I can't do everything perfectly. But Mike, being a perfectionist, couldn't hide his irritation with me. What? I'm trying my best. Even though I'm busy with the kids, I still make your lunch every day, and I clean every day, even if it's not perfect. Plus, I'm keeping up with my work too. You're using the kids as an excuse? You keep saying work, 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 but I only asked you to help because I thought you could. If you couldn't, you shouldn't have bragged about being able to from the start. What? No, I told you I couldn't do it right now. Then you were like, what, so I have to do it? So, I was like, then I'll do it. So, you're saying this is my fault? And who do you think you're talking to? You think you're better than me? Well, during our relationship, Mike's arrogance and selfishness were there, but they didn't bother me as much. However, he had traits closely resembling those of narcissistic personality disorder and was prone to emotional abuse. Just by refusing intimacy a few times, I was branded by him as a woman who doesn't conform to his wishes is unnecessary. From then on, he would take out his frustrations from work on me, and it wasn't rare for him to ignore me for a week without any reason. Moreover, when Mike was in a bad mood, he would say things like, I made a mistake. I should have stayed with Anna. She was so clean and would always leave my place spotless. Now that I think about it, Beth was perfect at handling my work. I wonder what she's doing now. Mike often compared me to women from his past, and every time he did, I'd ask, why would you say something like that? I'm trying my hardest too. But his response would always be defensive. Who do you think you are? Who do you think I am, leaving me feeling upset and dismissed? Honestly, it was disheartening and deeply saddening. Still, on his good days, Mike was as kind and fun as he used to be, which made those days enjoyable. Thus, I tried my best not to provoke him, aiming to be the ideal woman he wanted. I believe I was suffering from Cassandra syndrome at that time. The psychological state of Cassandra syndrome is something only those who have experienced it can understand. Being with Mike was like toggling between heaven and hell. Experiencing hell should be unbearably painful, yet knowing what heaven is like leads to self-sacrifice in an attempt to get closer to it. And despite understanding the inhuman behavior of the other person, one might end up believing they themselves are partly to blame. Our age difference of 8 years might have easily led to this dynamic. However, it was impossible to avoid stepping on landmines, especially when Mike's moodiness often stemmed from things outside the home. Keeping up this unbalanced relationship for years, I planned to return to being an office worker once our children started daycare. Hey, Mike. I was thinking it might be time for me to go back to work. Work? What are you planning to do? I thought I'd go back to being an office worker. What are you talking about? People will think my business isn't doing well if you start working. It's common sense for the wife of an entrepreneur to bring in new business or build connections to increase the company's profits. Yeah, you're right. Considering your position. I found myself agreeing with Mike, and from then on, I became deeply involved in his business. Initially, I was happy to be spending time with Mike, but his emotional abuse worsened. Unable to vent his frustration on employees, he began to openly take it out on me in front of them. What the hell? Take responsibility for me. But enough with your buts. You're useless at home and work. You're really worthless. Hey, Mike. That's a bit too much to say. Even when an employee intervened on my behalf, I felt humiliated by the situation. It's okay. Being a business owner can be very stressful. Letting him vent is part of my job, after all. Though I answered cheerfully to the employees, inside, I was holding back tears, hiding my frustration and sadness. Gradually, the remarks that undermined my personality increased. But, for better or worse, working together built up my immunity to verbal abuse, and I slowly started to emerge from the shadow of Cassandra syndrome. I became adept at avoiding Mike's emotional abuse, coming to see his outbursts as nothing more than an animal barking. However, my love for him cooled in proportion to my growing indifference. The reason I didn't choose divorce was because of our daughters. As time passed and the girls entered junior high school, their individual personalities began to emerge. My first daughter is smart and academically excellent, making her the top of her school. She had a cheerful and mischievous nature, quickly becoming Mike's favorite. On the other hand, my second daughter struggled with schoolwork in the conventional sense. Except for physical education, her grades were the opposite of her sister's. She was a tomboy, often running around the house, jumping off tables, and kicking balls. Because of this, she often broke Mike's expensive whiskey collection, knocked over the TV, and damaged other things, which frequently led to Mike scolding her. "Scarlett excels in her grades, but why do you always make me angry?" "I'm sorry." Right after apologizing, the younger daughter would start running around the house again, causing both Mike and me quite a bit of trouble. However, I valued each of their unique personalities and made it a point to only scold them for dangerous behaviors or breaking things. But to the perfectionist Mike, my second daughter seemed to become an unwanted presence. When in a bad mood, he would ignore her and always take my first daughter with him when he went out. For birthdays, while Scarlett got expensive gifts she wanted, Amy received only a bubble wand. It was obvious to anyone that he was favoring Scarlett. "Why does Scarlett get nice clothes, and I only get a bubble wand?" Amy challenged Mike, but that only angered him further. "There's no reward for someone with poor grades who constantly breaks things at home. If you want something nice, be the top of your class like Scarlett." Though Mike had a point, it didn't align with my approach to parenting. Eventually, Amy began to feel hated by her father and started ignoring his words. Mike, provoked by this defiance, often resorted to emotional abuse towards her as well. One day, she accidentally broke another one of his cherished whiskey bottles. At the peak of his anger, Mike shouted at Amy, "You're a defective piece of junk, just like your mother. I don't need a daughter like this." Then he turned to me, "Hey, Nancy. Could it be that she has a different father?" "That must be it." "What nonsense are you talking about? Amy is undoubtedly your daughter, Mike. If she were my child, she wouldn't have turned out like this. You must have been unfaithful." I felt as if my veins were about to burst with anger. I urged my daughters to go to their room, and once they were inside, I unleashed my pent-up frustration on Mike. "Enough already. Do you think it's okay to say such things to our daughter? You've been ignoring me and Amy without a second thought, saying horrible things. Don't you feel even a bit of remorse for behaving so badly as a person, as a man? That's because you and she are useless trash." "That's exactly what I'm talking about. How would you feel if someone called you useless or trash? What's wrong with stating the truth? I'm actually doing you a favor, so you don't embarrass yourselves in public. Plus, I'm successful, so no one dares say such things to me." "Then let me say it." At that moment, all my restraint vanished. "You're an abuser. A human piece of trash. A psychopath. Get out." With that, Mike grabbed his car keys and left the house. Immediately after, I started packing, intending to leave for good. The children were already asleep, so I planned to leave the next morning. The next day was Saturday. After breakfast, I explained the situation to my daughters. They both cried, and Scarlett said to Amy, "Amy, I'm sorry. I knew something was wrong too. I felt guilty for being the only one treated well, but I was too scared to say anything because of Dad." "You did nothing wrong." While we were talking, Mike returned home. He brought a young woman in her early 20s with him in the passenger seat. Besides our usual family car, he also owned several sports cars. Among them, his favorite was a Porsche. He had left in the Porsche yesterday, and now he was back with a woman next to him. At that moment, I understood what it meant. But I no longer cared. They entered the house, all smiles and chatting. Seeing the packed bags at the entrance, Mike snorted but then said, "Hey, Nancy. You don't have to run away after all. What? I want to divorce you. And to think you'd say that after bringing another woman home. What? What are you talking about? Once I'm divorced from you, I'm gonna marry her. Huh? I'll give you the house right from the start to avoid any hassle. What? Not only was I stunned, but so were our daughters. Come on, Scarlett, we're leaving. Wait! Where do you think you're taking Scarlett? She's gonna live with us. What? That's ridiculous. I won't let you take either of them. You think a young woman like her can raise my daughters? She's close in age to them, more like a sister than a mother. I'll do my best as a new mom. How far gone is he, really? You're forgetting something important. Do you think you can support 2 kids through high school with your income alone? And you want Scarlett to go to college, right? Having a house is the least of your worries. He had a point. Though I had worked for Mike's company, I hadn't been paid in personal funds. I was only credited with living expenses as my salary, leaving me without any savings. Returning to a regular job wouldn't cover college for the kids. For Scarlett's sake, letting her go with her father seemed the only option. I'm sorry, Scarlett. Staying with me might not allow you to reach your full potential. But we'll talk every day. All right. I'll be fine. Mom, please take care of Amy. Scarlett responded with strength. After they left, Amy cried again. Mom, I'm sorry. It's all my fault that we're separated from Scarlett. Amy, listen. This is not your fault at all. It's all because of your father's character. You don't have to worry about anything. But Dad said I'm a defective product like Mom. He made fun of us. I can't do well in studies or anything. I might just be a burden. What are you talking about? You are a masterpiece. You have a richness of sensitivity that ordinary people don't have. At the time, Amy might not have fully grasped what rich in sensitivity meant, but I understood that, although she might not excel academically, she possessed a unique sensibility that others lacked. From then on, without any interference from Mike and being freed from the emotional abuse, we gradually regained our true smiles. Although not being able to see Scarlett often was painful, we were able to live our days in peace. 12 years had passed, and Amy was now 25 years old. Having grown into a fine adult, she was captivated by a movie she saw in high school and now worked in the film industry. As for me, to prove Mike wrong, I started my own business shortly after our divorce. Using my accumulated know-how, I established a food import and distribution company. A few years later, to utilize Amy's talent, we started a small film production company together. By the time our company had grown to employ 2,000 people, my younger daughter took on her first challenge as a director. When Amy's film was shown in a single theater for the first time, my company became listed. Around that time, a TV program decided to feature us under the title The Story of an Up-and-Coming Film Director and Her Mother. A few days after our story aired on TV, a surprising visitor came to our company. Mr. Richardson is here to see you. Richardson? Yes, he wants to give flowers to Amy. Okay, let him in. All right. Hey, long time no see. You look well. The visitor was my ex-husband, Mike, holding a large purple phalaenopsis orchid. You've become quite impressive. I heard Amy made a movie? I don't know much about films, but isn't she amazing? This is a congratulatory gift for Amy. Is she here at the company? Whether she's here or not, it's none of your business. I don't plan to let you see her, and I doubt Amy wants to see you. Come on, don't be so cold. Can't you at least ask her? After that TV program, I bragged to everyone that my daughter has become a famous film director. How convenient for you. After everything you said to Amy, have you forgotten? You called her trash, a defective product. Do you realize how much that hurt her? I regret that, okay? I never imagined Amy had such talent. Neither did you, right? If I had known, I wouldn't have said those things to her. You haven't changed. Whether Amy and I succeed or not, we are who we are. Our worth isn't determined by status or public opinion. What's with the attitude? Anyway, I have no intention of letting you see Amy. It's not the flower's fault, but please take your orchid and leave. You're so cold. But I came here today because I had something to discuss with you. Wishing Amy well was just a side note. What? You want the house back? No, it's not about the house. Calm down. This could be a good opportunity for you, so just listen to what I have to say. Intrigued, I decided to hear Mike out. Actually, I've been thinking about starting a new business. He wanted to discuss his plans to open a glamping facility. True to his nature, his proposal was well prepared. This glamping facility, don't you think it would be impressive if it comes to fruition? But to build something of this scale, the funding would exceed 1 million, wouldn't it? I can't take that risk alone. So, how about we both pitch in half and co-manage it? Think of it as our child, since we couldn't raise our children together. Why not try this challenge together, just once? Mike's proposal about the glamping facility, as he said, wasn't a bad idea. But that was always Mike's way. He judged people based on whether he could use them or not. 12 years ago, Amy and I were deemed unnecessary by him. Yet, seeing our success, he likely thought to take advantage of us. However, I was aware of Mike's substantial debt. According to what I heard from Scarlett, his business hadn't been doing well for about 5 years, leading to the closure of all 3 of his restaurants due to staff shortages. Additionally, his main car dealership also saw a decline in sales as younger generations became less interested in owning cars, with revenues having from their peak. Despite this, Mike, unable to let go of his pride, took a loan of $30 million from a bank in a bid to begin his new business, which also failed. It seemed he was left with a significant amount of debt. Sure, it's a good proposal. But, do you have the money? What? You have debts, right? How do you plan to secure a loan from the bank? How do you know about that? I heard it from Scarlett. You said the same thing to her husband, didn't you? Scarlett said that? After graduating, Scarlett joined the development department of a major company. Then, she met and married the son of a CEO from one of their business partners. She's currently focusing on raising her children. Mike had apparently pitched this business idea to Scarlett's husband too. Normally, pitching a business idea to your daughter's in-laws would be considered quite inappropriate. But Mike doesn't see that. Because he operates on the principle of using whatever and whoever he can. This made Scarlett furious. I'm truly grateful for the education, but Dad, you're a bit off the norm. Don't drag my family into this, she had said, keeping her distance from him. Maybe you're planning to use my money to start the glamping site and then run it while paying off the loan? What? His reaction confirmed my suspicion. After all, having worked together for more than 10 years, I was well acquainted with Mike's way of doing business. Well, it sounds interesting, so I might take you up on that offer. But if I'm investing 100%, it's not a joint venture. Let's call it a service fee, and you'll get 30% of the profits. What a nasty woman! Try to be a bit more charming. That's why you can't find someone to remarry. Actually, I'm already remarried. I just kept my maiden name, Overton, because I started the company afterwards. Huh? There was someone else who fell for you besides me. So, what will you do? Will you take my offer? I'll think about it. Don't say you can do it if you can't from the start. Oh, where have I heard that before? I never heard from Mike again after that. In the end, he probably couldn't let go of his pride to ask for help, especially after being mocked by me. Afterward, it seems his business deteriorated to the point where he had to declare bankruptcy. It appears he hadn't told his new wife about his failing business, but following this incident, she seems to have left him. No one knows where he is now. Unable to let go of his pride and pretense, he moved to a place where no one knew him and was living off day jobs. It seems loneliness suits an abuser like him.